1957 and grew up on a farm in Gansu Province, China. His father was a very firm believer in and practitioner of communism, and his mother was a kind-hearted and hardworking farmer. As a child, Xiefeng attended temple with his mother to worship Chinese gods, including the Earth God, King of Dragon God, Erlang God, and others. He learned Taoism from his grandmother, Buddhism from his mother, Islam from a Muslim colleague, and Hindu from some Indians. Xiefeng spent his early years in China and had various occupations including being a technician, an English teacher, and a statistics officer. A state company sent him to work as an interpreter in Zimbabwe during the 1990s. Before founding Life@Chanuan, Xiefeng was self-employed and had several shops plus a restaurant in Harare, the capital and largest city in Zimbabwe. Spiritual awakening. His enlightening experience began after a car accident in Zimbabwe. One day, after he had been driving for many hours on a highway, he fell asleep and crashed his car into a big milestone near a cliff. Magically, incredibly, he survived without any injuries. He did not understand how he could have survived because if his car had gone in only a slightly different direction, it would have rolled over the cliff and he would have died instantly. After that experience, he felt that his old, secular life had died in that car accident, but that his new, spiritual life belonged to some God. He began questioning the meaning of his life as he gradually lost interest in his businesses. He then spent 3 years learning the Bible from Jehovah's Witnesses, occasionally joining them at Kingdom Hall services. However, he eventually felt that he had not found all his answers from that source. For many years, he practiced Qigong every night in order to maintain his health. Moment of epiphany. Without finding the answers from Jehovah's Witnesses, Xiefeng continued his way seeking for truth in the theory of Buddhism, Taoism, and other philosophies from Chinese ancient wisdom, modern science discovery to meditation on nature phenomena. Then it happened at one night of 1999, when he was reading the Diamond Sutra, he suddenly understood everything. The mysteries of the origin of the universe and humanity, time and space, and what life is, unraveled and became crystal clear to him. An invisible divine force compelled him to write all his discoveries on paper, and that is where Xiefeng Corpus and Chanuan Corpus came from. Chanuan Corpus and Xiefeng Corpus. In June 2001, Xiefeng terminated his businesses in Zimbabwe gradually and began writing articles for Chanuan Corpus and Xiefeng Corpus. From 2001 to 2017, Xiefeng has written nearly 3,000 articles describing the construction of the Life@Chanuan value system, including the profound truth of the universe, life, time, space, consciousness, non-material structure, and energy, as well as the way to create a new production and life mode for people and guidance articles to help Chanuan celestials purify their soul gardens and sublimate their life qualities on the self-cultivation way. In 2010, Chanuan Corpus and Xiefeng Corpus were published formally through the Hong Kong International Culture Press with the first 1,000 sets of 10 books. Life@Chanuan column articles on Buoxuan website have reached 12,880,000 hits as of the end of 2017. Note: Buoxuan is the most visited website for political commentary and social reporting among the ethnic Chinese population of North America. New Oasis for Life. In 2009, Xiefeng returned to China and founded the second home of Life@Chanuan, now New Oasis for Life, community. It had been developing quite well, with more than 150 members on 3 farms in Yunnan province. In January 2017, in anticipation of a promising future, Xiefeng changed the community's name to New Oasis for Life. As the founder of Life@Chanuan, Xiefeng sees that his role is the spiritual guide to reap the ripe crops, initiate and develop the new production and life mode for the new era, and guide Chanuan celestials to climb the highest realms of life and life. I have an ideal. Shuefeng. Translated by Transin Limited and edited by Care. Following the footprints of immortals, sages, oracles, and saints, I have crossed and trekked numerous treacherous mountains and rivers. Roaming all through the wilderness of soul, I have been spreading the message of the greatest Creator. The wishes of God and Buddha and the expectations of oracles and saints have converged to form my ideal, which is as clear and bright as the shining sun and can be food of thought for you to meditate over. Human beings have been trekking along a long path soaked with blood. Jesus and Sakyamuni have revealed to us that in the universe there are many higher spaces of life, and have earnestly and tirelessly admonished us not to go astray from the great road of life. Numberless immortals, sages, oracles, and saints have exerted their utmost effort for the happiness of mankind. Their souls are still shining brightly over us, warning us not to act against the law of nature and wishing us to live a happy life. However, blinded by the dense fog of civilization, mankind has been straying further and further away from the great road. I want to kindle a beacon of hope to light up the endless darkness, bringing mankind a ray of hope. I want to create an oasis out of the vast and isolated desert, offering an auspicious and harmonious habitat for life on Earth. I want to build a land of spirit and soul out of the boundless ocean of flaunty material prosperity, leading to the land those people who yearn towards the greatest creator, love life and nature, and possess beautiful human nature and soul, and making them eternally severed from the abyss of sufferings. I will shepherd them safely to the thousand-year world to enjoy the wonderful time of the millennium. The people favored by God and Buddha are still miserably shackled in spirit and soul. In this bustling world overrun with desire for material acquisition, people with a purer and better heart are more prone to spiritual and psychological tortures, and cannot afford even a moment of peace and quiet. Every place reeks of putrid smells. What meet the eyes are wickedness and evils that have gone unpunished. Man's tremendous amount of legal articles and religious teachings are powerless to avert the depravity of morality and the prevalence of wickedness. The viciously misleading evil soul and the junk thought have taken up the throne of truth. Despotism has not only caused the loss of personal and spiritual freedom for the governed, but also has caused the governing class to be trapped in the quagmire of desperation, without any hope to obtain the true freedom of life. I want to tell people that the plight of mankind doesn't lie in the material aspect but in the spiritual aspect. The wasteland of spirit and soul is the real source of human suffering. Seeking the homestead for spirit and soul is an urgency for mankind. The blind pursuit of material acquisition is only analogous to quenching one's thirst with poisoned wine, or stopping water from boiling by scooping it up and pouring it back. Thus, such acts will cause the ruin of not only the earth, but mankind itself. An era is a demoniac era if the dignity of a person is determined by the amount of money he has earned and the social position he has attained, and if the value of man is not measured by his moral character and good deeds. A society is an evil society if it allows its subjects to become upstart through speculation and plundering instead of getting rich with honest and diligent labor. A government is a despotic and satanic government if it spares no effort to force out new thinking, attempting to lock people in an ignorant and barbarian and savage world. A nation will be one void of wisdom and oriented toward insanity and destruction if it does not advocate dedication and love, but blindly instigates its people to use violence. Man's worry originates partly from ignorance and partly from selfishness. Because of ignorance, we have invited demons in but shut the door against God and Buddha. Because of selfishness, we have chosen wickedness but abandoned righteousness. A lot of good ideals and kind moralities are often snuffed out in the cradle. The desolation of soul is the optimum soil to breed junk thought and religious plague. Today, people are engulfed in information. Television, networks, newspapers and magazines, books and lectures are infusing mountains of information into us, far more than we can digest, thus causing the indigestion, malnutrition, and ill health. The pursuit of knowledge has become a morbid thirst. The more we attempt to swallow down unthinkingly, the less we understand. Various media have become the fertile soil to cultivate ignorance and manic and blind adherence. Having no beliefs, no principles, no wisdom, and no spiritual perception, those literati have made up rancid articles under the pretense of maintaining stability, advocating reform, carrying forward culture, inheriting legacies, publicizing morality, and promoting benevolence, and under the disguise of adhering to belief, cultivating oneself, pursuing freedom, and fighting despotism. They have fabricated so much cultural garbage and so many spiritual drugs that it is impossible to clean them all up. The roughly manufactured scum has become our daily food for thought, which has directly distorted our values, destroyed our human environment, and polluted our pure heart. Having no beliefs, no principles, no wisdom, and no spiritual sense, those literati hangmen worship those rancid articles as classics under the pretense of maintaining stability, advocating reform, carrying forward culture, inheriting legacies, publicizing morality, and promoting benevolence, and under the disguise of adhering to belief, cultivating oneself, pursuing freedom, and fighting despotism. As for those works of wisdom, which shine resplendently with thought, they look down upon them as heresies and wielded their cultural butcher knife toward them without hesitation. The Chinese people. On the one hand, you have been heaving sighs that China has become a land deserted by the greatest creator, but have you on the other hand acquired the broadness of mind to include great wisdom? Can you recognize it when great wisdom really descends from heaven? I have an ideal that the greatest creator may enter China and the human world, that Christianity and Buddhism may regain their prevalence here, and that humanity may be restored on the beautiful land. When conspiracy and tricks prevail over truth, justice is taunted, enthusiasm meets with contempt, reverence for the greatest creator is regarded as ridiculous, oppression and bully are viewed as inviolable power, the hoodwinked masses are meanwhile branded as ignorant, freedom is slandered, life is trampled, right and wrong are reversed, black and white are confused, and good and evil people mixed together. Then in such situations we have no choice but to search the source of life. Only in this way can we pierce through the indistinct murk and see the light. Only in this way can we steady the steer in the turbid and turbulent waves and ultimately reach the ocean of life. In this unusual time of superficial prosperity, when actually crises are lurking everywhere, we are not yet in the position to sing praises of the virtue or merits. At a time when the journey is rough and treacherous, flattery and conservativeness cannot salvage us. Now it is not yet the time when the bank of injustice has gone bankrupt completely. Any non-action and dawdling will only speed up the approach of doomsday. We will only eventually lose our beautiful homestead and splendid future if we are only capable of destruction and are incapable of construction, if we don't know how to repay other people's favors and are only bent on vengeance, and if we only want to acquire from others and do not know how to dedicate to others. For many centuries, man's blind behaviors have dug out an abyss, which can engulf us at any moment and thus should be filled up. The sooner it is leveled up, the better it would be. Reverence for the greatest creator and adherence to his road is our only hope, because only in front of the greatest creator can we have equal human dignity. Because we should worship the greatest creator so that our mind can possess soul, our knowledge be transformed into wisdom. And only in this way can we understand the meaning of life and embark on the great road of life. You may lock yourself up in the ivory tower, lose yourself in the piles of broken papers, and engross yourself in the so-called academic research, thus placing yourself outside the social issues. In so doing, you seem to have entered a serene heaven. However, can you expect any egg to remain intact if the nest is overturned? Poke your head inside a cave, leaving your hindquarter exposed and fancying that what is not seen does not exist. Can you derive from your research any great achievements that may do any good to humankind? The unrealistic teaching or truth that blindly preaches pursuit of happiness of future life is absurd and wicked. A person always wearing a smile is relentless at heart. A person always with tears is cruel at heart. Children are suffering starvation and cannot afford education. The poverty-stricken have no money to treat their diseases. However, we are manufacturing various kinds of luxury products and building one after another lifeless skyscrapers. Isn't this a mockery and blasphemy against life? If our neighbors have no freedom, we ourselves cannot obtain complete freedom. If our brothers are suffering starvation, we cannot swallow the dainty food in our mouths. If people in the remote areas are crying, we will not be able to enjoy quietly the comfort and luxury of big cities. I have an ideal. I will lead those who truly yearn towards the greatest creator to life genuine and transform the jarring hullabaloo into a fraternal movement and play a convivial symphony of life. I firmly believe that mankind can certainly walk out of the dark canyon and the wasteland of spirit and enter an unprecedentedly beautiful field. I firmly believe that soul will prevail over flesh and that people will eventually obtain the freedom of body and mind and the serenity of life. This is not a golden fantasy for the remote future. The majestic tides are surging with mighty momentum. Among their broad bosoms are contained colorful gems that can decorate man's life and make it more noble and beautiful. When the unexpected supernatural incident comes, the mysterious power shall strike people's heartstrings, the vast fields will take on the splendid coating, the polluted rivers will become clear and pure again, the turbid sky will be changed into expanses of colorful clouds, and the free rhythm will reverberate in each inch of the land. Eternal virtue remains with Jesus Christ. Supreme wisdom is ascribed to Sakyamuni. Eternal glory belongs to the greatest creator. Life's wisdom. Seizuola. Who is wrong? Xiefeng. Edited by Kair. No one in the world is wrong. Everyone is right. If we think that everything in the world is right, that proves that we are right. If we think that everything in the world is wrong, that proves that we are wrong. No one is wrong. It is you who are wrong. Mice burrow. Are they wrong? The mice think they are right, but that mankind is wrong. Cats catch mice. Are they wrong? The cats are not wrong, because they believe that what they do is perfectly justified. Wolves eat meat. Sheep eat grass. Who is right and who is wrong? All are right. If we think it is not right, that means our understanding of things is not right. Some believe in Christianity, some believe in Buddhism, some believe in Marxism. Who is right and who is wrong? All are right. If we think that some beliefs are wrong, that proves our understanding has a problem. Some like money, some like beauty, some prefer to be alone, some like to fight. Who is right and who is wrong? All are right. If we think they are wrong, that only proves that we are wrong. Some are addicted to be the police. Some are fascinated to be thieves. Is anybody wrong? Nobody is wrong. Are lazy people wrong? Are hard-working people right? We are not the ones to say who is right and who is wrong. We can only say what is right for our very selves. Is the arrangement of heaven wrong? No. If you think heaven's arrangement is wrong, it is because we ourselves are wrong. It is only we who are wrong. We have no one and nothing to blame, not heaven, not the earth, not society, and not others. 10,000 dharmas are mere consciousness. Reality is created by mind. Whether the structure of the water molecule is beautiful or ugly depends completely on our attitude towards it. Are you sick? Do not resent society and others. It is your own fault. Are you in poverty? Do not resent society and others. It is your own fault. Do you have a troubled mind? Do not blame society and others. It is your own fault. Is the greatest creator dead? The greatest creator is not dead. It is you who are dead. Is Buddha not compassionate? Buddha is very compassionate. It is you who are not. In this view, wars, plagues, earthquakes, floods, and fires are not wrong. It is we who are wrong. In this view, burning and looting, embezzlement and theft, bribery and rampant mafia-style activities are not wrong. It is we who are wrong. The reality that we think is not reality, but rather a reflection of our subjective consciousness. It is our subjective consciousness that creates our reality in our minds. Quantum mechanics tells us that the existence form of the thing is closely related to the observer. That is to say, the thing being observed is the result of the observer. The action of the being observed depends on the observer's state of mind. For the same man, Xiefeng, some see him as the messenger of the greatest creator and the incarnation of gods and Buddha. Some see him as a witch and a madman, a fake preacher in the cloak of the greatest creator. Some see him as a friend and a second half. Some see him as a street shrew. Some see him as a saint. Some see him as an erotomaniac. After all, what he is depends on the cognitive way and the mentality of the observer. This further indicates that only when you have gods and Buddha in your mind can you see gods and Buddha, and only when you have devils in your mind can you see devils. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The devil is in the eye of the enemy. This is in line with the conclusions of the quantum mechanics. Tao learners are to change themselves, rather than change others or society. If you do not change yourself, society and people will never change. If you change yourself, society and others will change accordingly. Similarly, if you want to enjoy a better environment, you must first have a beautiful soul. If you do not have a beautiful soul, you will never have a beautiful environment. This is one of the 8 secrets of life. If we want to live in the 1,000-year world, we must first acquire consciousnesses and souls that are fit for the 1,000-year world. Once we get these consciousnesses and souls, it will be as easy as rolling a log for us to enter the 1,000-year world. The difficult thing is not that we cannot go, it is that we cannot adjust our thinking because thinking has inertia. Laziness and unwillingness to engage in in-depth discussions and thinking are commonalities for people. Letting our thinking run according to convention is the easiest and simplest, but it has no future. Do you want to get rid of your immediate dilemma? You must first realize that you are wrong. The plight before your eyes is the objective reflection of your false consciousness. If your false consciousness remains unchanged, then your immediate plight can never be clear of it. Even if you escape from this predicament, the next predicaments will arrive unceasingly and in quick succession. It is only when you realize your mistake that you can find the right direction in which to go. It is only when you understand that the world is not wrong that it is you who are wrong, that you can see the ultimate goal of life. And only when you know the ultimate goal of life, that your life can go to the higher level. Do you want to jump off a building and kill yourself? Jump. You can go to hell after the jump. Do you want to cultivate Tao and become immortal? Do it. You can go to heaven after the cultivation. Do you want to suffer? No problem. Just go on a wild goose chase and stick to your narrow mind and just think you are never wrong. Then you can expect suffering and torment. Do you want to be joyful and blessed? No problem. Just open your mind and engage in unconventional thinking. Just realize that you are wrong, and then you will have infinite joy and blessings. Did I say wrong? Who is wrong, you or I? I know I am wrong, but are you right? 走出绝望. Escape from despair. Xiefeng. Edited by Care. Fear can hold you prisoner. Hope can set you free. The Shawshank Redemption. Each year, hundreds of thousands of people in despair commit suicide, while each day, tens of millions in despair struggle to survive. It has been this way in the past, and it continues to be this way now, but it does not have to be this way in the future. Natural disasters do not make people despair, nor do hard material lives. Rather, people only despair when they have mental and spiritual trauma, and when they have the consciousness of seeing no better prospect. Mankind must rise from despair. The despair of life, the despair of mind, the despair of soul, and the despair of consciousness. People's desperation is not the intent of the greatest creator, or of gods, Buddha, the celestials, or of saints and sages. It is the product of people's mysterious consciousness, both the individual consciousness and the collective consciousness. Everyone must start from within themselves in order to escape from despair. To escape from the desperation of our minds is the key to escaping despair. Death may befall anyone at any time, and if we do not remove the threat of death from our consciousness, whether our life is brilliant or bleak, it will be a tragedy and an illusion in the end. How do we change life's tragedy into a comedy? How do we turn life's adversity into prosperity? How do we turn the bitter wine of death into the sweet nectar of life? The first reality about life is that death is not the end of life. People attain the quality of celestial beings through self-refinery and self-improvement, and then go to live in the heaven of life. The 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium Island continent. Heaven is not an illusory conception of religionists to anesthetize people's hearts. Rather, it is true reality. To clarify this point, we must understand that what had been a mystery of life is no longer such. To this end, not only have Jesus, Buddha, Seth, and even ESP already revealed the answer to us, but Life Genuine has also done the same, and with greater details. As long as you enter Life Genuine, you need to give up your inherent mindset and open your heart. I am sure that you can understand this holy yet simple mystery. Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, taught us, "If it be that ye can pass beyond the zones of heaven and earth, pass ye. Not without authority shall ye be able to pass." This coincides with Lao Tzu saying, Heaven's net is broad and wide, with big meshes, yet letting nothing slip through. The way to avoid the nets above and snares below is to seek Tao. What is authority? What is Tao? In short, it is the greatest creator. So revering and worshiping the greatest creator is the greatest commandment of life. As we walk through the mist of death, we will see a new world. When we understand the real existence of heaven and when we are informed of the way to heaven, the bitters and sweets of life will turn into nectars, and we will be able to stride to the next station with neither adversities nor hardships, but rather with confidence, ease, and calmness. To escape from the despair of our souls, we must understand the non-material world, because if we do not, then our souls will remain dark. Not only will we not view the scenes of heaven, but we will not even see the glow of its dawn. We must carefully savor the words of Jesus and those of Sakyamuni. They never spoke falsehoods or told lies. Everything they spoke is true, and each sentence is a rung on the ladder to heaven. We must escape from our mental despair. We must practice unconventional thinking, because anything believed to be impossible through conventional thinking is possible through unconventional thinking and with fewer complications. We must understand the secrets of the Noble Eightfold Path of thinking and break from the shackles that traditional thoughts impose upon us. We must take efforts to see the distant views and the prospects, and we must trek unswervingly to the highest realm of life. To free ourselves from the despair of life, we must establish the correct worldview and outlook on life. To this point, we should learn from Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, from Mao Zedong, from Avalokitesvara, and from Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. We must release our personal interests and wear the shoes of the suffering people in our hearts. We must dedicate our lives to the people, society, and nature that nurtured us. To free ourselves from the desperation of life, we must take the great way, not the small trail. Becoming celebrities, heroes, officials, or simply wealthy is not the great way of life. To overthrow a regime, damage a harmonious society, suppress a religion or political party, form an armed social group, and so on would not welcome in the great way of life either. To earn a doctoral scholarship or professorship title, to cultivate special magic powers and arts, to practice witchcraft and sorcery, to read people's fortunes through the black art of divination, or to conjure gods and dispatch ghosts are not the great way of life. To embezzle and breach one's duties, to form cliques and factions, engage in malpractice for selfish ends, or to do anything by hook or crook does not support the great way of life. On the contrary, they are the evil way of life. What we do must be fair and square, but never done underhandedly. The Lord is everywhere, and nothing you do remains unknown forever. We must lead honorable and upright lives, not do things clandestinely, not learn tricks to conspire, and never say anything to curse or blaspheme your ancestors. The great way of life should be like this. Revere the greatest creator, revere nature, revere the gods and Buddha, honor your parents, respect the prophets, saints and masters, respect national leaders, be law-abiding, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Respect the old and love the young, be honest, industrious, kind, and do not take anything from others for nothing. Do not take advantages of others, the state, or nature, and try to be an ordinary, simple, and happy person. Life genuine is the final course for mankind. Heaven has its Tao, earth has its Tao, and people have their Tao. As long as we follow humane Tao, we will attain immortal Tao. As long as we enter life genuine to learn, understand, and comprehend with open minds, we will discard our despair, enter the life genuine era, and eventually enter the Elysium world of heaven. Deny despair, refuse despair, and abandon despair. Let us join hands, love and help each other, and march towards the field of hope. 无悔人生, a life without regrets. Xiefeng, edited by Kair. There are countless paths of life, but few of them are without regrets. From imperial families to those in poverty, and from highbrow dignitaries with imperial notions to the masses who follow pop culture, few people can say when they leave the mortal world, I regret nothing in my life. Regrets are part of life. Remorse and distress interweave into life as people advance dauntlessly, trying to pursue an optimum life through one attempt after another. Philosophers, religionists, and politicians try to navigate through life with efforts to make them work without regrets, and although everyone begins to fight for their ideal life from the time they are born, almost all eventually leave the world with regrets and emotional scars. Which way leads to a life without regrets? In the early 1980s, I wrote a letter to a friend in which I listed three main pursuits in life: health, wealth, and freedom. However, I have found that even after having achieved these goals, I am still far away from that life without regrets. Today, I view having a life without regrets as one which realizes these five ideals. To connect one's own life with that of the source life. In this case, no matter how short one's life is in this mortal world and no matter what hardships or splendors they might traverse, their life will always remain connected with eternity, and a much more magnificent picture will manifest itself in the end. In this way, their life will have no regrets. To accept one's fate as it is. Whether one is a blade of grass or a peony, a robust eagle daunting through the sky, or an agile swallow flying over fields and under eaves, whether they are born handsome and beautiful or plain and ordinary, whether they are highly gifted or severely challenged, and whether they are born into a humble house in a remote village or into the imperial palace in the capital, they can all appreciate the sun and moon, rivers and mountains, the rosy dawn and sunset's glow, the wind and frost, and the rain and snow. As long as they have hearts like this, they will feel grateful and not complain about the Tao of heaven being unfair. This too is the way to lead a life without regrets. To create joy in one's life through hard work, as busy as a bee working cheerfully. No matter how much spiritual or material wealth they create, no matter whether the fruits of their labor are enjoyed by many or few, they must keep working sincerely. They must not expect to be extremely rich and noble, or to earn great fame and recognition. As long as their blood, sweat, and tears drip into the soil along their natural paths, they can all be proud to say, "I have tried." In such a case, their life will have no regrets. To act in accordance with one's nature. It is a life's eternal error to imitate and emulate others. A lady from an illustrious family has her special charm as a daughter from a humble family also has her qualities. Urban city dwellers have their style while countrymen have their pure beauty. The rich have their problems, but the poor have their happiness. Delicacies have beautiful tastes and colors, but plain tea and simple food have rich nutrition. And extraordinary people have special gifts, but ordinary folks also have their advantages. To dream one's dreams and enjoy their pleasures, to take things as they are and act in accordance with one's nature, neither to force one's actions, follow fashion, nor compare themselves with others, to love what one loves and hate what they hate, and to treat oneself sincerely are all necessary if one is to enjoy a life without regrets. To do their best at everything they do. Whether it is to support their parents and rear their own children, or to help their siblings, friends, and neighbors, and seek public benefit. As long as one does their best, they will have no regrets. Our parents brought us up and their love is higher than the mountains and deeper than the sea. Every child wants their parents to enjoy their twilight years and to show their filial piety every day. But there are many things beyond our control and few can do absolutely as they wish. Parents understand this. And as long as they have tried their best, they will have no regrets. Children are our future and our ideal, and every parent wants their children to enjoy wonderful and successful lives. But wishes are wishes and reality is reality. Even one's fingers are of different lengths and weeds will grow in flower gardens. No one can expect perfection, but as long as they have done their best to rear their children, they should have no regrets regardless of what happens. There is nothing anyone can do when their children complain and resent them, but those who have done everything to the best of their ability will have no regrets. No one should ever carry more burdens than they can bear, nor force themselves to do the impossible. To act to one's capability and to do their best is to realize a life without regrets. We can certainly run on, but as there is no perfect life under heaven, why should we pursue one? All things created by the greatest creator are strewn in random order, but at distinct levels. As long as we obey the arrangements of the greatest creator, fulfill our obligations as human beings, and advance along the track of human nature, then whether our life shows favor or adversity or is bright or dark, ours will be a life without regrets. 灵性人生 The Spiritual Life. Xiefeng. January 10th, 2006. Translated by Shidai and edited by Care. Life on Earth can be divided into three categories: the mortal life, the wise life, and the spiritual life. Those who live for money, food, status, fame, and friendship are leading mortal lives. A full 80 to 85% of all people endure these types of lives. Those who live to pursue truth, spiritual wealth, honesty, kindness, beauty, love, and creating harmonious societies are leading wise lives. About 5 to 10% of people lead these types of lives. Those who live to revere the greatest creator, comprehend the mysteries of Tao, supreme enlightenment, and the highest state of life are leading spiritual lives. Only about 2 to 5% of people are gifted to lead these types of lives. Spiritual lives are extraordinary lives. This tiny percentage of people who lead spiritual lives have only the greatest creator in their hearts and minds. They never use their own wisdom or cleverness, but follow their hearts to live. They have no religions and do not put their hopes on any nations or special leaders. They have established unbreakable relationships with the greatest creator, and though they live on earth, their hearts are already transcending through time and space and traveling toward the kingdom of the greatest creator. They are retiring and unassuming, forgetting their own lives and wholeheartedly walking on the way of the greatest creator. Their hearts are full of peace and light. These people are the seeds of heaven and the essence of humanity. If you want to follow the spiritual path, the best road is to follow Jesus Christ's teachings. All teachings from Jesus Christ are telling people to walk on the way of the greatest creator, which is also the mission and sole purpose of Jesus Christ's coming to earth. Let us listen to the teachings of Jesus Christ in order to live this spiritual life. Jesus answered, "I tell you the truth. No one can enter the kingdom of God unless he is born of water and the Spirit." John 3 verse 5. Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." John 4 verse 13. Jesus declared, "Believe me, woman, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship in spirit and in truth." John 4 verses 21 to 24. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6 verses 19 to 21. So do not worry, saying, "What shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear?" For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Matthew 6 verses 31 to 33. Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Matthew 7, 13 to 14. Not everyone who says to me, "Lord, Lord," will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, "Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons and perform many miracles?" Then I will tell them plainly, "I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers." Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. and it fell with a great crash. Matthew 7:21-27. And so I tell you, every sin and blasphemy will be forgiven men, but the blasphemy against the Spirit will not be forgiven. Anyone who speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven, but anyone who speaks against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven, either in this age or in the age to come. Matthew 12:31-32. Then some of the Pharisees and teachers of the law said to him, Teacher, we want to see a miraculous sign from you. He answered, A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a miraculous sign, but none will be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. Matthew 12:38-39. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. Matthew 13:44-46. Then Jesus said to the centurion, Go, it will be done just as you believed it would. Matthew 8:13. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. John 24:12-13. Anyone who loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves his son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And anyone who does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. John 10:37-39. Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. John 6:35-38. Stop grumbling among yourselves, Jesus answered. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, they will all be taught by God. Everyone who listens to the Father and learns from him comes to me. John 6:43-45. He went on to say, This is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled him. John 6:65. But what about you? He asked. Who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, Blessed are you, Simon son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven. John 16:15-17. He replied, Because you have so little faith. I tell you the truth, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Matthew 17:20. He called a little child and had him stand among them. And he said, I tell you the truth, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 18:2-3. Again, I tell you that if two of you on earth agree about anything you ask for, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 come together in my name, there am I with them. Matthew 18:19-20. He said to another man, Follow me. But the man replied, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. Jesus said to him, Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Still another said, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family. Jesus replied, No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. Luke 9:59-62. Jesus answered, My teaching is not my own. It comes from him who sent me. If anyone chooses to do God's will, he will find out whether my teaching comes from God or whether I speak on my own. He who speaks on his own does so to gain honor for himself, but he who works for the honor of the one who sent him is a man of truth. There is nothing false about him. John 7 verses 16-18. We shall try our best to enter through the narrow gate, and live spiritual lives by following the teachings of Jesus Christ to walk on the way of the greatest creator. No one's teachings are more comprehensive, profound, and authentic than those of Jesus Christ. Therefore, Jesus is the Christ, the door to eternal life. It is only by entering through this door, and we do not need any other methods to self-improve or self-refine, that we might arrive in the kingdom of the greatest creator, the Elysium world. 人生的三大财富, the three great treasures of life. Xiefeng, July 24th, 2006. Translated by Transin and edited by Care. People accumulate and process three types of treasures of wealth during their lifetimes. They are defined as immaterial wealth. This is the physical material to sustain human bodies, represented by forms of money, such as currency, precious metals, jewelry, real estate, vehicles, food, household appliances, clothing, and any other physical properties. Spiritual wealth. This includes those elements that enable consciousness, including wisdom and understanding, and all mental activities to remain healthy, free, uplifted, comfortable, and blessed through attributes such as knowledge, skills, experiences, family affection, friendship, love, religions, groups, states, reputations, positions, and so on. Soul wealth. This is the intangible energy and information that can make the quality of life elevate and the non-material structure of life evolve to the perfect system, such as the psychic energy of the greatest creator, the running program of Tao, the revelation of gods, the teachings of Buddha, the cultivation of celestial beings, inspiration, spiritual perception, and so on. The three great treasures above complement each other and are integral to each other. With no material wealth, we cannot have the foundation to make a living. We will either die or become beggars and parasites. Our bodies will not rest, our hearts shall not be at peace, and our undertakings will fail. We will be starving and impoverished, and so we must create and get material wealth by relying on our intelligence and hard work. However, those with only material wealth and no spiritual or soul wealth are lacking and tend to commit crime, suicide, and abuse life and nature. Without spiritual wealth, we would be a constantly moving animal who lives by instinct. The lack of ideological wealth would make us lonely, bored, and empty, and we could not reach a state of joy and blessing, and our mentality would be twisted and distorted, suppressed, hot-tempered, eccentric, and prone to go to extremes. However, those with only spiritual wealth but with no material or soul wealth are lacking, prone to being liars, to talk big and fool along. They are likely to do things stealthily, be opportunistic, and become parasites who love to eat, drink, and have fun, as well as careerists and schemers. But without soul wealth, we would never know the meaning and value of life and the purposes of human life. We would not be able to establish the right worldview and outlook on life, and our values would be confused. Not having belief and faith would be like walking through the black of a starless night with low spiritual perception and living a muddled life like a walking corpse. However, those with only soul wealth but no material or spiritual wealth are also lacking. They are likely to be possessed by devils, dwell on spirits and deities, fortunes and disasters, and to play with concepts. They look ghost-like and are obsessed and maniacal. They tend to defile the names of the greatest creator, gods, Buddha, and celestial beings, to poison and bewitch people's hearts, to bring harm to society, and to deviate from humanity and from nature. Earth, water, air, and fire mutually reinforce and neutralize each other. Symmetric balance is blessing. If you ignore any single one of the three great treasures, you will not be able to obtain a perfect life and will walk on a deformed life. Road. The perfect life should be as such. To learn knowledge and skills lifelong, based on the experiences acquired through hard and honest work, getting a constant, proper amount of material wealth, but never taking the pursuit of material wealth as life's ultimate purpose, lest we become slaves to material wealth. To love nature, cherish family affection, friendship, love, to honor our good reputations, to comprehend the revelations of gods and Buddha, to listen to the teachings of saints and sages, to revere nature and the greatest creator, to constantly self-refine and self-improve, to never stop trekking and climbing to the highest realms of life, and develop to perfection. To take the way of the greatest creator and pursue the three great treasures, giving neither up nor going to extremes with either, but controlling the balance, having peaceful hearts and minds. Just like the clear streams falling from the head source while cheering and jumping across valleys and between mountains, winding their way and rushing to the vast ocean while singing all the way. In the end, it is to get wishes fulfilled, debts paid off, connections unbound from the mortal world, and to become extraordinarily refined, to accumulate merits and virtues, to understand the mystery of life, to meet death with joy and excitement, and to ultimately reach the Elysium world. 追赶太阳逃过黑夜 Chasing the sun and escaping the night. Xiefeng. July 10th, 2017. Edited by Kair. It was 6 a.m. on Wednesday, August 19th. We flew west for 2.5 hours from Beijing Capital Airport, PK, to Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport, BOM, in Mumbai, India, where the local time was also 6 a.m. We then continued to fly west for another 3.5 hours to Harare International Airport, HRE, in Zimbabwe, where the local time was still 6 a.m. We continued to fly for another 7 hours to New York City, where the local time was still 6 a.m. We continued to fly west for another 11 hours back to Beijing International Airport, where we found that the time was also 6 a.m., but it was Thursday, August 20th. We had flown for 24 hours, from 6 a.m. on Wednesday to 6 a.m. on Thursday, but the 24 hours we had gone through were all during the morning, never in the evening, and all the times we saw were 6 a.m. So where did the night go? You may think about where the night went, but the fact is that we are fully capable of leading our lives without nights and can even spend them with eternal mornings, middays, and afternoons. From this, we know the following truth. As long as we chase the light, we can escape the darkness. This is an indisputable fact, but is everything like this? Things can be very smooth when we actively seek sincerity, kindness, beauty, and love, but misfortune will befall us when we fail to actively pursue them, just as we would encounter the night if we did not remain on westbound jet planes. A girl who finds a sugar daddy may escape from poverty for a brief period of time, and a boy who follows an emperor may escape disaster. When our fathers want to punish us, but we coax them and make them happy in some way, their desire to punish us will diminish. The ship we were to have taken sank, but we took a patient with a serious disease to a hospital and missed the ship and also the disaster. Please try to understand this fact. If we chase the light, we can escape the darkness. If we pursue happiness, we can be free from misery and trouble. If we pursue the truth, we can avoid falsity. If we pursue beauty, we can escape ugliness. And if we pursue goodness, we will avoid evil. More importantly, if we pursue the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world, we will escape the mortal world. Nights exist, but they have nothing to do with us. The mortal world exists, but it has nothing to do with the people who live in heaven. And here is the fact. If we worship Buddha, then we will attain Buddhahood, and if we seek to be celestial beings, then we will become celestial beings. Those who remain single all their lives will avoid the afflictions that families cause. If we learn from the saints, we will avoid committing crimes, being hunted by the police, and being arrested. If we sit at home for self-improvement, we will miss the car accident. If we attend church or temple services, we will miss being assaulted, mugged, or robbed. If we do not fight in wars, we will avoid the threat of being killed on the battlefield. Chanyuan Celestials of Life Chanyuan go all out to pursue sincerity, kindness, beauty, love, and the highest realms of life, and will escape the darkness, falsity, wickedness, ugliness, hate, and cheating, and escape from the mortal world and from hell. Misfortune and suffering will withdraw farther from us. We will have light when others are in darkness, will be in a land of idyllic beauty when others are being punished by nature, and will be enjoying the kingdom of heaven when others fall into abysses. We are delighted to cultivate ourselves every day and to revere and take the way of the greatest creator. Unconsciously, we avoid a lot of misery and devastation. As long as we hold on to our faith, we will be able to reach the shore of our ideals. Chase the light and escape the darkness. 战略人生 Strategic life. Xiefeng, edited by Kair. Using the best building plan, employing the most advanced machinery, mobilizing the best construction workers, and applying the highest quality materials, such as steel and concrete tiles to build a skyscraper on sand, what will happen? The result will be a crushing failure. Why? Because there was a strategic error. You cannot build a high-rise building on sand, and even if you could and did, a single breeze would collapse it. If it is strategically wrong, any tactical success is equal to zero. As in the example above, the building plan, the advanced machinery, the excellent construction workers, the high-quality materials, and other tactical successes will ultimately have zero value because of the strategic mistake. Strategies are overall planning and designs. Tactics are specific measures to achieve them. If the strategy is wrong, then even the best tactics are ultimately hopeless efforts. Sun Tzu's The Art of War includes strategies and tactics. Life also includes both. The so-called strategic life must grasp and operate life from the macro perspective, or life must first have the right ideal with the right directions and goals. Otherwise, no matter how diligent you are, how hard you try in your lifetime, you will end up fruitless. I once drilled a well in a remote village in the Binga area of Matabeleland in the North Province of Zimbabwe. First, I mobilized all the villagers and built nearly 10 kilometers of road, and we cut down the trees that blocked the vehicles along both sides of the road. Then trucks loaded with the drill and other materials and workers entered the construction site in a formidable array. Hundreds of villagers cheered like thunder and supported us with great enthusiasm. After 2 days of drilling down to a depth of 90 meters, not a single drop of water had been found. The drilling failed. After having taken so much labor and having invested so much money, the result in the end was zero. Why was that? The reason lies not in tactics, but in strategy. In other words, the drilling point designated by the geologic and hydrographic staff was dry. In a spot with no water, Water. No matter how many human and financial resources you invest, or how excellent the drilling experts you have mobilized are, you will never drill out water. While taking a course in marketing, an American professor told us the story of an American shoe factory that wanted to set up a branch in Africa. So they sent two market researchers to Africa to make a survey of the shoe market. One researcher came back and reported pessimistically that there was no market for shoes in Africa because African people did not wear shoes. Another researcher came back and reported optimistically that a huge market for shoes existed in Africa because none of the African people were wearing shoes. In this situation, what should the American shoe factory have done? This leads to the strategic issue. If the strategy is correct, then there will eventually be huge profits. But if the strategy is wrong, it will drag the shoe factory down. Most African women do not wear socks, and if someone were to import a container of socks to sell in Africa, he or she would be making a strategic mistake. Recently, I found a pinch of black slags on the white floor tiles in my bathroom. The situation remained the same the next day, even though the gardener cleaned it every day. Today, I bent down and took a closer look. It turned out that dozens of tiny ants were making nests along the edge of the floor tiles against the wall. I felt very sad about this because those ants had made a strategic mistake. The bathroom is very clean, and having a food source would be a big problem. Would it not have been better if the nest had been built in the lawn or under the tree roots in the garden? It might be a good idea to build a gem processing factory in Siberia, Russia, but building a soy sauce factory would be a strategic mistake. Now let us come back to the strategic issues of life. The first strategic issue of life is to give play to your strengths and to do the things that you want to do. If a profession is not right for you, or if it does not make you feel comfortable, then do not force yourself to do it. You would be better off staying idle than forcing yourself to do it because this is a strategic issue. Once you make a strategic mistake, your whole life will be trapped into building castles on sand. Had the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Mother Teresa, not helped the helpless and lonely people, but rather studied radioactive elements like Marie Curie, she might not have accomplished anything at all. Likewise, if Chen Jingrun, who took the math crown pearl by solving the Goldbach conjecture, had been sent to manage the marketing department of an HR firm, it could have ended up in a complete mess. If a person is tone deaf, but wants to learn music or wants to be a singer, then they would be making a strategic mistake of life. I have a distant uncle. He became an apprentice to a carpenter at an early age. 3 years later, he could not even make a chair without help from his master. That is to say, my distant uncle had made a strategic mistake of life. He was not born with the material to be a carpenter. The second strategic issue of life is to comply with time. Sowing in spring, harvesting season in autumn is correct. If you want to act at times inverse of nature, you will be punished by the Tao of heaven. Those who suit their actions to the times are wise. Yiwu people of Zhejiang province, China, are called the Jews of China because they have a shrewd business acumen. However, during the Cultural Revolution, they were often criticized as models of walking on the capitalist road, so their shrewd ability could not be played out. I knew a very talented man who remains in prison after more than 10 years because he was involved in a democracy movement. This was not a bad thing and it was totally above board. So why is he in prison? Because what he did was ill-timed. In other words, he wanted to pick and eat his watermelon before it was ripe, and he made a strategic mistake. The third strategic issue of life is to always place yourself in the right position and not to overstep. If it is your duty, you make sure to be conscientious and earnest to do it well, and never to try to shirk your responsibility. But if it is not within the scope of your duties, keep your mouth shut, do not gossip, and pay no attention, even if the sky falls. What responsibilities do you have as to whether the country rises or falls? You have a responsibility to be a good citizen. According to the teachings of Jesus Christ, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? I have several colleagues who often criticize the decisions of the leadership as well as the work and behavior of other colleagues. Ultimately, they were a nuisance and could not play out their strengths, and so ended up complaining but unfulfilled. An assistant general manager was very talented and could have had broad future prospects, but because he was too critical of the decisions of the general manager, he was soon dismissed. That is to say, a person, no matter how capable they are, must be sure to place themselves in the right position. Every man should confine himself to his own duties, otherwise, it is overstepping. What is the biggest strategic issue in life? Jesus tells us clearly, "For what a man profited, if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" That is to say, the greatest strategic issue of life is the issue of the soul. From novels, history, and reality, we learn that many people have lost their souls for money and wealth. Many have forfeited their souls for power, and many have lost their souls for fame and lust. These are all strategic mistakes of life. Similarly, many people have forfeited their souls for their families, their ethnic groups, their religious or political parties, or for their countries. These people have also made strategic mistakes of life. Everything is but a game. Only the soul is real. The issue of the soul should always be kept in first place because everything revolves around it. In this way, once the key link is grasped, everything else falls into place. Now, everything is clear and everything else in life is to play the game. You have developed a mind which does not abide in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and dharma. And the Tathagata comes. That is the life strategy of great wisdom and intelligence. 是我们自己出卖了自己的自由. It was we who sold our own liberty. Xiefeng. July 23, 2017. Translated by Treasure and edited by Care. Liberty is supreme and priceless, and it is the feature of life in heaven and shows the level of a life. The more liberty, the more heavenly. The less the liberty, the more hellish. Liberty, love. For my love I will sacrifice life. Thereto I need, for liberty I will sacrifice my love. Pedify Sandor. Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry. Liberty is the greatest wealth in life. Losing it is losing life. Gaining it is gaining life. So, what is liberty? Liberty is the infinite power of a life to use its eyes, ears, nose, body, mind, and tongue while acting with desire but never overstepping it. Seeing what you want is the liberty of your eyes. Hearing what you want is the liberty of your ears. Going where you want and using your hands and feet as you want is the liberty of your body. Saying and thinking what you want is the liberty of your mind, namely the liberty of your spirit and soul. The liberty of your eyes, ears, body, and mind form the liberty of your life. Those who have eyes but are forbidden to see, have ears but are forbidden to hear, have a mouth but are forbidden to speak, have feet but are forbidden to walk, have hands but are forbidden to act, and who want to lead their own lives but are banned from doing so have lives with no liberty. We will not discuss the liberty of gods, Buddha, celestials, saints, devils, monsters, or even plants and animals. We will only talk about that of humans. People have very little liberty. In other words, they rarely keep it in full. Why do we not have liberty? Because we sell it. How do we sell it? It is mainly sold through three channels or aspects. Culture. People sell themselves to traditional cultures. They accept traditional cultural values, such as the belief that people should marry when they grow up, but when they step into marriage, they sell their own liberty. Traditional culture says, never travel far from the company of parents. Then the body has no liberty. Traditional culture says, love your nation and love your people. Come on. They have sold their liberty to their own nation and culture, and so on. Morality. They sell their liberty to their own values and beliefs. Party loyalists and religionists are stark examples. So-called proponents of liberty are actually kidnapped by their morality and sell their liberty to morality. If they sell their liberty to the belief in evolution, then they will not accept the value of creationism. As a result, the survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle, and winners are kings while losers are gangsters becomes their creed of life. It will be hard to avoid the fighting to death, and liberty can't be found anywhere. They need to remember that anyone without liberty is unable to offer it to others, just as the poor cannot bring wealth to others and ugly people cannot bring beauty to others. Mechanism. As long as there are constitutions, laws, regulations, doctrines, disciplines, contracts, and the like which restrict and bind them, people will sell their liberty to that which they set for themselves. Their state is a mechanism. They believe in their state, and they sell their liberty to their country. Marriage families are mechanisms, and as long as they consciously enter into marriage families, it is no doubt that people will sell their own liberty to the marriage family. A contract is a mechanism. When a contract is signed, liberty is sold to the contract. When we do not feel free today, we have to rethink that we have no liberty because we sold it. For that, it is as normal that we have no liberty as if we sell our house and then have nowhere to sleep. That is all our fault, and we have no excuse to complain to others. In addition to the 3 main channels to sell liberty listed above, we also have the following list of small channels through which it is sold. These include jealousy, blaming, comparing, fighting, killing, worry, fear, desire, money, power, fame, lust, and so on. As long as we are infected with any of these negative emotions or inner anxieties, or indulge in any desires, our liberty will be restricted or even lost. For example, if we fear something that restricts our liberty, then we sell our liberty to fear. When a country perpetrates a national terror policy and makes people live in fear from morning till night, then the people's liberty will be deprived completely, and they will have to live a life more like that of a dog than a human. Tracing back to the source, the country might not be bad, but the people have sold their liberty to fear. As more and more citizens of a country become willing to sell their liberty to fear, this terror policy becomes the perfect way for the state to control its people. The bondage of the individual is self-inflicted, and the slavery of all is caused by the collective. If one wants to enjoy liberty from such an environment, there is only one thing to do: escape. Where to go? To a free place. If there is no free place on the earth, escape to heaven. 长不大的婴儿. Infants who never grow up. Xiefeng. January 15, 2006. Translated by Treasure and edited by Care. Everyone has a natural attachment to their mother, and no one wants to leave her swaddling cloth. One can drink their mother's milk and feel safe in her arms, so one would ever want to leave their mother's side. However, those who never leave their mothers will never grow up. So if you are to grow up, you must do so. Of course, I do not mean to leave her physically, but rather to leave her spiritually and psychologically, or you will never grow into maturity. Leaving one's mother is painful, but to not do it is to remain an infant who never grows up. Leaving the mother takes these 4 steps. Cutting the umbilical cord. This step is done right after we leave our mother's body. Weaning. This step is forcefully done when we transition from being babies to becoming children. Cutting loose from home. This step usually happens when we marry. Cutting the emotional attachment. This step is gradual and melts away as our mothers leave the mortal world. This is as natural a process as it is an uncontrollable one, and it describes our growth process. This is not being heartless, it is simply our journey of life. Many people have left their mothers in form, but not in essence. Their mother complex is transformed and demonstrated in other ways. When we were young, we thought that we could not survive without our mothers, and when we grew up, we felt that we could not endure without our states. People all over the world defend their states. National defense is designed to protect the mother state, and so military expenditures on national defense worldwide is alarming. This is an unnecessary waste. If people around the world had no states, civilization could ascend to a much higher level, but people are attached to their mother states, and no one wants to wean. The ideal of the absence of the state is not a fantasy, and if everyone were to become Chanyuan celestials, then states would naturally disappear and they would become historical memories. The more powerful and intrusive that states become, the more contradictions and conflicts that they inflict upon their people, the heavier that the burdens they place upon them always become. Therefore, the absence of the state is the ideal dream of the sages and saints of mankind. The role of religion is in fact the mother's role. The feelings of religious believers to their own religions are actually the subconscious reflections of infants' attachments to their mothers. Pledging to protect their mother is an inherent nature contained within every person. The fanaticism of religious believers is the perfect manifestation of this inherent nature. The greatest creator is not in religion, and this is understood by every follower, so why do they still maintain their religions? because their followers are unwilling to wean. Maintaining religions is actually a kind of natural complex of maintaining their mothers to infants who have never grown up. As long as we take a rational analysis, we can see that throughout history, much misery and many disasters have been the outgrowths of religions. Religions confused people's minds, paralyzed their instincts, created barriers and shackles to the full display of human nature, and diverted people from the great way and led them astray. If religions are everywhere, then our minds can never be at peace, and disputes will continue. Therefore, the absence of religion is the desired dream of the sages and saints of mankind. Political parties are also umbrellas playing the role of the mother. We have a saying, "back to the arms of the party," which is the best footnote to the meaning of political parties. The reason that people join political parties is to be embraced by others so they can enjoy a steady flow of milk and a sense of safety. Claiming to be serving the people and the nation is but a cover. There are tens of thousands of political parties of various sizes worldwide, but their existence is a sign that people are still savage and ignorant. The power struggles between political parties have always flashed with knives and swords for life and death. Superficially, it is for democracy, but actually it is to inflate their mother complexes. To reach substantive purposes, they resort to various conspiracies in both light and shadow, adding endless suffering and problems to society. So, the absence of all political parties everywhere is the noble ideal of people climbing to the highest realm of life. The other organization, acting in the mother's role, is the family. It is said that the family is the cell of society, but these cells are inherently cancerous and everyone's life troubles and misfortunes stem mainly from them. It is the bane of selfishness, greed, and infinite lust, and if they are not destroyed, the vicious cycles that people endure will never end. Why do people want families? Because people need to get their milk and their sense of security from them. People are reluctant to grow up, and they all hope to cling to their mother's arms forever. States, religions, political parties, and families take on the roles of mothers, and as long as we still cling to them, we can only be described as infants who have never grown up. New era consciousness requires people to step out of infancy because those who cannot think outside the infant's crib have no road to heaven. Before the birth of life genuine, the existence of states, religions, political parties, and families was justified, but now their presence is irrational. Previously, we thought that those who sacrificed for their states, religions, political parties, and brought honors to their ancestors were great and respectable. Now, we know they are pathetic and are infants who have never grown up. 寻找自己的伊甸园 Looking for your own Garden of Eden. Xiefeng. December 1A 2007. Translated by Transin and edited by Care. Even tigers may be teased by dogs when they leave the remote mountains and come to lush and flat areas. Dragons can be duped by shrimp when they are in shallow water. Camels along the coast are harder to ride than donkeys, and domestic captive phoenixes are worse off than chickens. The tiger is the king of the mountains, but tigers can only give play to their power and prestige in the mountains. Once they come down to the plains, a pack of wild dogs will dare to tease them. Dragon are lords of the abyss, but dragons can only summon wind and call for rain in the abyss. If they fall into shallow depressions or ponds, the little shrimp and small fish can dupe them. Camels can only demonstrate their most valuable qualities in deserts, but if one lives along the coast, it would be less useful than a donkey. Phoenixes can roar out songs and show their magnificence in the quiet of plain trees, but if they are unfortunate enough to be kept in cages with feathers falling and listless in form and spirit, then they are worse than chickens. These phenomena suggest such a truth, that all kinds of life can only give full play to themselves and demonstrate their most precious qualities and values when they live in the environments suited to their natures. If they are unfortunate to live in an environment not suited to their own characteristics, not only can they not play out their strengths, but they might even be teased and duped by other creatures around them. I call the environment which best suits one's survival their Garden of Eden. Everyone has their own Garden of Eden, and it is only inside of it that they will live out their elegant demeanor. If you are away from your Garden of Eden, you will be frustrated and have difficult times and even be regarded as a waste or good for nothing by others around you. The white swan was unfortunate to live within flocks of chickens and ducks in the beginning, being laughed at and mocked by them, and was ridiculed as the ugly duckling. The genius painter, Vincent van Gogh, was spiritually enlightened, but had the misfortune to be living in a secular society, so he was unappreciated and taken advantage of all throughout his life and eventually died in poverty and with depression. Zhang Zia, the founding minister of the Zhou dynasty, went to do business, but ended up with losses rather than profits. Chen Jingrun, who took the crown pearl of the Goldbach conjecture, went to the market to buy vegetables and was ridiculed as being a bit silly. One who is kind should not be a commander. If you are kind and soft, then you should never lead an army into battle, for you would never become a general. One who is righteous should not engage in trade. If you have a strong sense of justice and are ready to help the weak, then you should never go into business, for you would never become wealthy. One who is honest should not enter into politics. If you like seeking out the truth from facts and adhering to the truth, then you should never enter politics, for you would never become a senior official. One who has a loving heart should not marry. If you have a loving heart, then you should never marry, for your love would be tied up and unable to shine with brilliance. One who has a noble soul should not mingle in the secular world. If you have a graceful heart, then you should never mingle in the secular world, for you would be regarded as silly and your beauty would go unappreciated. One who is unsophisticated should not engage in writing. If you are honest and simple, then you should never engage in writing, for your articles would not possess literary elegance and would likely invite scorn and ridicule. One of integrity should not engage in the art of war. If you advocate honesty and hate cheating, then you should never go into a war to confront others, for the art of war is full of tricks. Confronting others, whether civil or military, is all about tactics and tricks, so you would be doomed to lose. If you want to make your life happy, joyful, free, and blessed, if you want to play to your strengths and expertise, if you want to stand out and rank high, and if you want to climb to the highest realm of life and life, then you must find your own Garden of Eden. If you come from the 1,000-year world or the 10,000-year world of heaven, then you must not envy the world's high positions and great wealth, and not waste your time trying to get your ideal life from the mortal world, because its soil is not suitable for you to grow in, bloom, and bear fruit. Your Garden of Eden is in heaven, not in the mortal world. Seek out those people who appreciate you, are nice to you, and who like you, but do not try to change anyone, especially those whose ideas and views are always against yours. A leopard cannot change its spots. One cannot change one's essential nature. To those people who have different frequencies of mind and consciousness, no matter how impressively you sing their praises, how you comfort them, how you attempt to persuade them, they will never appreciate your feelings or understand your intentions. Even if you open your heart to them, they will still be indifferent and persist in their old ways. When you find your Garden of Eden, you should cherish it. Never take for granted that you can do anything and give up your Garden of Eden. There was a division commander who battled like a fish in water and was very capable when he was in the army, but he grew proud and conceited and thought he would be capable in any environment. So he left the army and entered into civil administration. There, he expected to play a great role, yet after years of rushing about, he suffered setbacks everywhere and could not achieve anything. The hero in the army became good for nothing during peacetime. Why? Because he had left his own Garden of Eden. Never assume that cacti can grow everywhere or can please everyone. That which comes easiest is the most valuable. However, that which comes easiest is the mostly likely to be ignored and undervalued. The greatest creator has given each of us a chance to access their Garden of Eden, but many of us do not pay due attention and do not value and understand their nature as much. Many people get it and then lose it. It is easy to lose than gain. What a pity. Look for your own Garden of Eden. I hope that everyone will find their own Garden of Eden. Abandonment is an achievement. Xiefeng. Translated by Treasure and edited by Care. Abandonment is an achievement. Xinding Celestial. It seems that abandonment is an achievement is a contradiction, but it is actually great wisdom, though beyond the ordinary people's comprehension and imagination. It embodies an ingenious realm, a boldness of vision that looks far ahead and aims high above the common and vulgar. a tactical strategy to have the situation well in hand, with great will to reach the top. The more you possess, the more trouble you have. It seems that will be much easier to abandon something at the proper time. If we constantly pursue possessions but refuse to ever abandon them, those possessions will become burdens and encumbrances. One who wishes to take a long trek to appreciate the attraction of distant scenery must take very little luggage, for the more they take, the more tired they will become, the slower their journey will go, and the less likely they will be to reach their destination. Life is but a journey which life travels through in the mortal world. The destination of the journey depends entirely on how far we travel during our lifetime. Those who possess too much in the mortal world will not be able to reach a more wonderful place. If they cannot abandon their possessions, they will only continue marking time with the samsara of the mortal world. If we hold fast to something, we cannot grasp anything else with our hands. If a room is filled with clutter, it is hard to add shiny, new appliances. If our minds are full of wants and desires, our spirits will be so exhausted that we will find it impossible to appreciate a new realm with dense willows and bright flowers or reach a spiritually pure land. Therefore, abandonment is an achievement. To abandon the past is to achieve the future. Abandoning a profession frees us to engage in another one. It is only by abandoning private ownership that we can achieve public ownership or even non-ownership. Only by abandoning being a human that we can achieve being a celestial being or Buddha. Only by abandoning the mortal world can we reach the fairyland. Only by abandoning the traditional family that we can enter the new oasis for life, and only by abandoning the state that we can enter the great unity. Abandon, abandon, abandon. Open a door and others will close automatically, but close a door and others will open automatically. As with a woman, when single, men will flock to her actively, but once she becomes engaged or married, they will stay away from her. Shinding Celestial's full quote was, "People say that it is tiring to live. Why might life be tiring? Because they are unwilling to abandon, and they always want more. Having obtained wealth, they still want reputation, fame, and status. Not realizing that the more they possess, the heavier their burden becomes, they will get more and more exhausted throughout their journey of life. Actually, abandonment is an achievement. Anyone who wants to lead a relaxed and free life in the mortal world must learn to abandon. Only continual abandonment will lead to continual transcendence. What should we abandon as people? That depends on where we want to go. If we want to go to hell, of course we should abandon sincerity, kindness, and beauty, so that we can gain falsity, wickedness, and ugliness. Only by breaking through the moral bottom line can we revel in evil of every kind. Only by abandoning love can hatred sprout, grow, blossom, and bear spiritual fruit. Only by abandoning faith and honesty can we be petty men. Only by abandoning hope can we get despair. Only by abandoning sublimation can we ensure that we will continue the samsara in the mortal world, struggling in a boundless sea of bitterness. So, abandonment is achievement. Generally, my purpose is to lead mankind into the Life-Genuine era. To learn about the identifying brands of the Life-Genuine era, refer to my 800 Values for New Era Human Being, which describes the Life-Genuine era with specific details. For individuals, I am here to guide people to the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium Islands continent. For this, I need people to abandon states, religions, political parties, and family lives. Only by abandoning these 4 items can we achieve happy, joyous, free, and blessed lives which are characterized thusly. The talented will be put to good use, and the whole world will be one family. No one would pocket anything found on the ground, and doors are not bolted at night. To unify all thoughts and all beliefs into the greatest Creator's will, and all religions into one uniform belief system. Everything will be in complete harmony and everyone will be happy. As for the individuals, people need to abandon these nine things: marriage, traditional families, states, religions, political parties, private ownership, outdated regulations, corrupt customs, and moralization that restrains human nature. The ways of God and Buddha, their egos. Abandonment is an achievement. Without abandoning marriage, it is impossible to achieve a state of being happy, joyful, free, and blessed. Without abandoning the traditional family, it is impossible to achieve the life of a celestial being. Without abandoning the state, it is impossible to achieve a realm of freedom. Without abandoning religions, it is impossible to achieve the freedom and purity of the soul. Without abandoning political parties, it is impossible to achieve peace and harmony. Without abandoning private ownership, it is impossible to achieve public ownership and experience the wonderful state of possess nothing and have everything. Without abandoning all the outdated regulations, corrupt customs, and moralization that restrain human nature, it is impossible to achieve natural, unrestrained, and elegant lives. Without abandoning the way of God and Buddha, it is impossible to achieve the way of the greatest creator. Without abandoning the ego, it is impossible to achieve paradise, to free oneself from the trap, to walk out of the 36-8 diagram arrays, to escape the territory of the mortal world, and to free oneself from the 5 elements and out of the program of the realm of necessity. Then, it will be impossible to reach the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world and never experience the glorious blissful state of forgetting oneself to be completely relaxed and joyful. Abandonment is an achievement. Continuing to walk in the old steps and secluding oneself, sticking to stale ideas, and clinging to bygone values will eventually lead to decay, corruption, decadence, and make it impossible to achieve freshness, pleasance, relaxation, and freedom. Abandonment is a painful process. The more you possess and the longer you possess, the more difficult it becomes to abandon, and the more benefits you get from those possessions, the less willing you will be to abandon them. It is easy for ordinary people to abandon their state, but lawmakers would never do that willingly, for they are their state's embedded first beneficiaries. It is easy for a new follower of a religion to disenfranchise, but not for priests and ministers, for they are the embedded first beneficiaries of their religion. A religious believer who has wallowed in their religion all their life will not abandon it easily because their confidence would collapse. They would be at a loss for what to do, and they would need to find a new track to follow. It might be simple for an ordinary political party member to abandon their party, but no party leader would ever abandon theirs, for once doing so, they would have nothing to play and could not command or control others. Common people look forward to the great unity, to lead lives of public ownership when the world will be one united family. Although it might seem easier for them to abandon private ownership, those who own property, especially those very wealthy people, will not abandon private ownership, for if everyone is really equal, how could they lead superior lives? How could they show off their wealth? How could they swagger before others or make others admire them? It is the same with married couples. The ones who are more stifled, abused, bounded, and exploited will hate their family lives, while the ones who benefit more from their marriages and family lives will hardly want to abandon them. Human nature includes the desire to control others and to have more and more people under their control. However, not all people can be kings, religious leaders, political party leaders, or bosses of companies. For the vast majority of people, the desire for control will be played out, realized, and fulfilled in their families. Men want to control their wives. Women want to control their husbands. Both want to exercise parental control over their children, and children are genetically programmed to get as much from their parents as they can. So, families are the first battlefield of life where great and small wars play out daily. Many couples show happy harmony to the public, but are unwilling to complain about their bitterness. In fact, you will always suffer from the pain that comes along with possessing anything. The more you possess, the more pain you will suffer. In this world, it is the kings, presidents, religious leaders, political party bosses, and wealthy capitalists who endure the most pain. It is they who cannot even lead peaceful lives day or night who are the most deserving of pity. Abandonment is an achievement. Abandonment is a great magic weapon to obtain mental and spiritual growth and is the best way to sublimate oneself and achieve a bright future. The core teachings of Jesus Christ and Buddha Sakyamuni dwell in it. The freedom and happiness of life and the secrets leading to the realm of heaven dwell in it too. 意识结构能量是宇宙三要素. Consciousness, structure, and energy are the 3 elements of the universe. Xiefeng, November 18, 2006. translated by treasure and edited by care. Look at the boundless world. What is caught by our eyes is material structure. Without structure, there is no material. For the various marvelous spectacle of lives, the differences lie in the differences of structures. Structures decide the forms of lives. We can choose the people who we want in crowds immediately because of their distinct structures. We can easily find a peony among many types of flowers because peony structures are distinctive. We identify everything by identifying their structures. The universe is full of invisible energy which only reveals itself by attaching itself to structures. Therefore, all visible objects that we see are structures combined with energy geometrically. Different structures absorb different energies. The wonder of the pyramids lies in their structures. Successful farmers do not grow the same kind of crops in the same fields every year because the land contains nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and different plants require them in different proportions. It is only by rotating crops constantly that the supplies of the various nutrients of the land will be distributed and utilized properly. Solar cookers and water heaters heat water because of their structures. Trains, trucks, and cars carry different loads because of their different structures. Flies, bees, tigers, leopards, and sheep need different foods because of their different digestive structures. Who creates such a great variety of structures? Look at the various high-rise buildings and cities. Who created them? Look at women's beautiful clothes and makeup. Who created them? All kinds of foods in supermarkets are like feasts for the eyes which cannot even take them all in. But who created them? There is no doubt that they were all created by people. But were they created by people's hands and feet? Of course not, but by people's consciousnesses. Their hands and feet are controlled by their consciousness. Without consciousnesses, nobody's hands and feet would accomplish anything. So we can see that the eternal things in the universe are only consciousnesses, structures, and energy. All other things are illusory, showy but not substantial, and cannot last. Energy is neutral, just like air and water, and any consciousness can direct it. Therefore, we need not attach too much importance to energy because fragrant flowers can attract butterflies. What kinds of structures can attract what kinds of energy toward them naturally? We know that all structures are the products of consciousnesses, so we do not need to emphasize structures too much. The kind of consciousness we have decides the kind of corresponding structure that we will have. Unify all thoughts and all beliefs into the greatest Creator's will and all religions into one uniform belief system. This is the one consciousness. The universe has consciousness. If it did not, then there would not be such a variety of life structures with thousands of postures and an infinite variety of material forms. Then what is this consciousness? It is the greatest Creator. When we find the greatest Creator, we find the headstream and the core. All problems can be solved effortlessly. The indistinct and misty become bright and clear. The complex becomes simple. Darkness morphs into light. The finite expands to the infinite, and misery becomes joy. The core beliefs of Life Genuine are to revere the greatest Creator and to take the way of the greatest Creator. This is the path leading to heaven. Those who go against this great path are of heretical sects, and regardless of what of names they take. How dazzling or marvelous their theories sound, how inscrutable their magical powers are, or how many disciples or followers they attract, they are all the superfluous tumors growing in the body of humanity that will be eliminated. Revere the greatest Creator and take the way of the greatest Creator. This is the touchstone to determine good from evil, truth from falsity, and beauty from ugliness. Evil and ugly people do not revere the greatest Creator nor take His way. Theories and sermons are evil and ugly if they do not revere the greatest Creator nor take His way. States, political parties, religions, or groups are evil and ugly if they do not revere the greatest Creator nor take His way. Consciousness is non-material, and the consciousness of the greatest Creator manifests itself as Tao. The consciousness of the greatest Creator runs through all tangible and intangible time and space everywhere, including both the material and the non-material world and the positive and the negative universe. This is the genuine God. States of consciousness decide the forms of life and their methods of survival. The differentiators of the lives of ignorant people, laities, mortals, sages, celestials, goblins, demons, devils, ghosts, and monsters are their types of consciousnesses. Therefore, we must emphasize our consciousnesses during our lives, and our emphasis on consciousness must always be on revering the greatest creator and taking his way. Once this key link is grasped, everything else falls into their proper places. We get twice the results with half the effort and find clear and bright paths to reach splendid goals. We will ultimately accomplish the spiritual state of immortality and attain the life structure of higher-level space and reach the other shore to realize our ideal. I believe that all government's officials, industrial and religious leaders, and company bosses do understand these principles very well. 格局与结局 Patterns and Endings. Xiefeng, June 8, 2020. Translated by Qinyu and edited by Care. A pan is a pattern and a pancake is an ending. The size of the pan determines the size of the pancake. A puddle of water is a pattern and the fish in it are an ending. The depth and width of the water decides the size and quantity of the fish. Space is a pattern. If it is small, then it can only hold a grain of sand. If it is vast, then it can hold the sun, the moon, the earth, and all the stars and galaxies. If a shepherd is jealous of another shepherd who has more sheep than he does, then he will never be more than a shepherd. If a beggar is jealous of another beggar who begs more successfully and gets more food than he does every day, then he will never be more than a beggar. If a monkey is jealous of another monkey whose butt is redder than his own, then he will never be more than a monkey. We find that people who compare themselves to and are jealous of their peers have small patterns. They will always be what they are now because they cannot go beyond themselves. If a person is always comparing themselves with others, then they certainly cannot become a celestial, a Buddha, or a god, because their pattern is that of a human, not that of any of the other three. That is, their pot is the human pot, not the celestial or Buddha pot, so they cannot bake their bigger cakes. A dog who is idle all day except to catch mice has the pattern of a cat and can become one. A wealthy landowner who looks down on the poor has the pattern of a rich man but cannot become a gentleman. A beautiful woman who satirizes people whose appearances are not as good as hers is physically beautiful, but she has the pattern of a thorny vase and cannot become a lady. It can be seen from this that those who look down upon and attack people who are less advantaged than they are generally have very small patterns. Therefore, those who look down upon and bully beggars and peasants in this world have small patterns and small futures. Those who challenge lions and those who challenge mice have different patterns and different endings. Those who challenge an emperor may become an emperor, but those who challenge a beggar can only become a beggar. There is an old saying that peers are enemies. In fact, those who regard peers as enemies do so because their patterns are small. The competition between peers is the cruelest in market competition. Sheep are not satisfied with goats farting, but they are all sheep and they are peers. Yesterday, as I browsed videos on the web, a famous internet figure whom I respected because he had produced several hundred high-quality videos had attacked another well-known videographer who had produced similar content. He said that the other guy was a liar, and this collapsed my respect for him in an instant because he revealed that his pattern was smaller than I had expected. Those with such small patterns cannot let others live and work in peace and cannot let the world be clear and bright. From this, I found a revelation. Those who always praise and inspire others are people with big patterns, but those who always suppress and attempt to destroy others are people with small ones. Those who have really big patterns acknowledge and praise their opponents, and those who praise their enemies have limitless patterns. We can thus infer these conclusions. Those who have bad relationships with their colleagues have small patterns, as do those who belittle others, attack their peers, bully people who are weaker than they are, contend for profit among relatives and friends, like internal strife, and those who like to show off. People with big patterns can endure humiliation on important tasks. A famous example is Han Xian, who was humiliated by being forced to crawl between other men's legs. To avoid wasting time and energy by bothering with those street thugs, he chose to endure crawling between their legs. Gojian, the king of the Yu Kingdom, sleeping on the brushwood and tasting the gall, sent his wife to King Wu's bed and even tasted King Wu's feces. Pu Songling, the author of Strange Tales from a Lonely Studio, who was repeatedly frustrated but never depressed, once composed a pair of couplets. Where there is a will, there is a way. After burning one's bridges, The 120 Qin passes finally belong to Chu, and heaven does not fail people who exert efforts. Sleeping on the brushwood and tasting the gall, 3,000 Yu soldiers conquered the Wu kingdom. We can see that his pattern was huge. If you were walking along a road and someone hit you, what would you do? People with small patterns would immediately scold, "Are you blind?" But those with large patterns would just smile and say, "I'm sorry, please forgive me for being in your way." People with big patterns will have good endings. The bigger their pattern, the better their ending. With a small pattern, you can only march in place or even retreat. Do you want to be a celestial being? Then do not compare yourselves to others, do not make a fuss with others, and do not compete with others. 四观相同才能和谐. For outlooks will give you harmony. Xiefeng, December 12th, 2020. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Care. It is often said that, with three different outlooks, people cannot live harmoniously. Only with the same three outlooks can people get along well with each other. There are also sayings that, with different worldviews, good relationships cannot remain long. With different worldviews, you cannot make good friends, communicate with people with different worldviews, and every word will be like playing a harp to a cow, etc. The three outlooks refer to worldviews, outlooks on life, and values. What I want to say is that if our outlook on life is different, then we cannot live in harmony either. If two people have the same worldviews, outlooks on life, and values, but different outlooks on life, what will the result be? One's outlook on life is their understanding and perspective of life and death phenomena and on time and space. If two peoples are different, then even if they have the same worldviews, outlooks on life, and values, it will be difficult for them to get along well. Worldviews are people's understandings and perspectives on the world. Outlooks on life are people's understandings and perspectives on their purpose, meaning, and value of life. And values are people's recognitions, judgments, affirmations, and denials of the importance of things. For example, Zhang Asan and Li Si both wanted to gain wealth, but how did they go about doing that? From the perspective of their worldviews, they both believed that the existence of the big world is for them to enjoy. From the perspective on life, they both believe that the purpose of life is to be happy and joyous. And from the perspective of values, they both believe that obtaining money is important and a necessary condition for gaining wealth. Therefore, they were harmonious in terms of worldviews, outlooks on life, and values. There were no conflicts or contradictions between them. However, disputes and splits occurred on the issue of how to achieve their goal. Zhang San believed that as long as he could gain wealth, he could offer bribes, sell heroin, or rob banks. But Li Si believed that these methods of doing it were absolutely unacceptable, that they were offensive to man and God, and that they would be punished. Zhang San and Li Si, who had the same worldviews, perspectives on life, and values, could no longer get along with each other on the question of how to gain wealth, and this resulted in splits and disputes. But what was the reason? The reason was that Zhang San and Li Si had different outlooks of life. Zhang San believed that everything is gone after death, and that living happily was the kingly way, while Li Si believed that people will reincarnate and that we should live without being offensive to man and God because otherwise, we will go to hell. Here is the conclusion. With the same three outlooks, it is still impossible to live in harmony. It is only with the same four outlooks that people can do so. 最近的一些人生小感悟. Some perceptions about life. Xiefeng, January 23rd, 2018. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Peter. Everyone's present must be accumulated from their past in speech, behaviors, and performances. Everyone's speech, behavior, and performance are absolutely determined by his inner world. Everyone's inner world is absolutely determined by his upbringing, cultivation, and self-restraint. Everyone's upbringing, cultivation, and self-restraint are absolutely determined by his beliefs and ideals. It is inferred from this that the path of life is determined by one's beliefs and ideals. To build the international family, I recently contacted and observed more than 50 communities in the United States and Canada. I also contacted communities in Japan and Portugal. I discovered many interesting phenomena. First, when something beautiful suddenly came, people would always doubt its pure beauty. Instead of embracing it boldly, people deliberately reject it. Secondly, everyone has beautiful ideals. But once the ideal things do come, they are at a loss to understand them and will even resist them. Finally, in order to unite the community, the outstanding must cater to and accommodate the mediocre. Once catered and accommodated to, it is tantamount to retrogression, and retrogression is painful. From this, we found that world harmony is not achieved by morality and ideals, not by preaching and guidance, but by the advancement of science and technology, by changes in lifestyle, and by the compulsion to survive. To follow the trend, I recently created my own Facebook account and discovered a new world. That is, I can establish connections with people all over the world while sitting in front of my computer. I have had friend relationships with people in dozens of countries, but I find that people are fonder of expressing themselves than paying attention to others. Not long ago, I got in touch with some classmates whom I had lost touch with over 30 years ago. Oh, I was so happy. I hurriedly shared my decades of experience and insights with everyone. The result was that there were very few responses. It was like throwing a stone in a lake that could not splash any water. It gave me the feeling that this generation, born in the 1950s and 1960s, has been swallowed up by the secular world. Except for enjoying their later life, actually waiting for death, this generation has no more enthusiasm and passion for life. They will not make any special contributions to the civilizational sublimation of this world. If they make any contribution, it is nothing more than sticking to tradition, restoring old ways, and attacking new ideas. I pay close attention to the natural changes in the world every day and find that no place on the earth is absolutely safe. It is either severely cold or tormented by scorching heat, besieged by floods, or scorched by drought, submerged by volcanic ash, or struck down by an earthquake. It either meets with a mudslide or encounters an infectious disease. It is either scorched by wildfires or plagued by wars. It is either blown down by a hurricane or engulfed by a typhoon. It is either shrouded in smog or ravaged by pollution, and it is perilous everywhere. Disasters will befall from time to time. I keep a constant eye on the changes in social ecology, and I found that none of the so many presidents and political elites around the world can come up with a path or plan for the development of human society that the people all over the world will agree with. From this, I feel that truly creative wisdom does not come from the brains of heads of state, but from the people. Civil society is the greatest hope for the rise of human civilization. Human beings have been living on the earth for 5,000 years, and the ideal production and life mode of humans has not yet been born on the earth. If there is an ideal life mode, it is the new oasis for life mode created by Life Chanuan, that is, the Xiefeng-style communism model. Where do people live the happiest? I lived in Binka, the most remote area of Zimbabwe, for a period of time. I lived in the most primitive place on Santo Island in Vanuatu in the South Pacific for a period of time. I lived in the prosperous city of Shenzhen of China for a period of time, and lived in the highly developed city of Vancouver, Canada for a period of time. The conclusion is that happiness has little to do with the place where you live, but has much to do with the pressures of life. The greater the pressure of life, the less happy people will be, and the lower the pressure of life, the happier they will be. Yesterday I read the article of Songlong Shuhua called The 14 Dregs Left by History in China, Rebellion Without Money, Corruption with Money. I felt that it resonated with me very much. The 14 dregs are regional awareness, anti-foreign sentiment, fighting among their own, obedience, shamelessly touting, all talk and no action, no tradition of peacefully changing regimes, handling affairs by relying on interpersonal relationships and blood relationships, worshipping the official ranks, fame, position, and glorifying the ancestors, paying no attention to science, treating people who criticize themselves as enemies. If they have no money, they will rebel, and if they have money, they will become corrupt. They can only share adversity, not peace and happiness. Regarding old and ruined cultural relics as national treasures, and not regarding talents as national treasures. Strong retropsychology, weak scientific thinking, and strong sense of superstition. The buying and selling of official positions is popular. I have been thinking about one thing these days. Everyone wants to live well, but after investigating history and observing the status quo, we must ask, how many people have lived an ideal life? From the emperor and president to the common people, From historical celebrities to current stars, from high-ranking officials and billionaires to workers, peasants and peddlers, from experts and scholars to illiterates and thieves, from African blacks to European and American whites and to Oriental yellow people, very few people have lived in happiness on their own. The current human race has a history of nearly 5,000 years, but most people have not lived an ideal life. What is the problem? After observation, I came to the following conclusions. Everyone does not know what kind of life they need. They are just drifting around. People are struggling with selfish desires, but they do not know that the more selfish they become, the more miserable their lives will be. People cannot let go of failures and frustrations, and they do things with resentment, which makes their situation worse. People want to live a good life by getting married and starting a family, but fall into a trap, which is counterproductive for them. The best inexhaustible resource for mankind is sex. Everyone yearns for a good sex life. However, mankind treats sexual resources as rubbish and waste in a moral, ethical, religious, and customary way. Reap what you have sown is an unbreakable truth, but what are people growing? Every day people are planting jealousy, complaints, anger, rage, hatred, condemnation, attacks, suppression, insults, fraud, lies, ridicule, irony, sarcasm, nitpicking, theft, corruption, luxury, waste, pollution, competition, killing, entrapping, cheating, abduction, deception, superstition, dishonesty, counterfeiting, etc. Can you have a good life by planting so many of these bad seeds? Internal factors are the basis for a good life, and external factors are the conditions for a good life. But people do the opposite. They do not work hard on their own roots, but are eager to achieve success in ever-changing conditions. Of course, they will never live a good life. They are either too impulsive or with insufficient reason, or negative, passive, and lazy. How can they have a good life? There are two ways of living that are not worth promoting and imitating. One is the life of pigs, and the other is the life of the dead. The life of a pig is like this. Every day they enjoy themselves leisurely without worrying about eating or drinking. When they are happy, they will play in a mud puddle mixed with rain and excrement, roll around and hum a bit. If they do not want to play anymore, they will lie down on the ground and sleep and feel that they are the happiest in the world. The life of the dead is like this, living in a well-decorated room, not afraid of smog, not afraid of wind and rain, regardless of the changes in the world, regardless of human suffering, not worried about the broiling of the sun, not worried about the cold, no enthusiasm, no passion. Even if they see another's fine piece of writing, they do not give any praise or encouragement, they do not even give a like. They are just like the walking dead. They think that they have become immortal or like Buddha. In fact, they are just rotten and their attitude stinks.
答复国际哲学团体联合会主席提出的4个问题。
My reply to the 4 questions raised by the chairman of the International Federation of Philosophical Societies, Xiefeng. August 16, 2018. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Peter. Professor Dermot Moran, chairman of the International Federation of Philosophical Societies, raised the following 4 questions at the opening ceremony of the 24th World Congress of Philosophy held in Beijing on August 13, 2018. Is the relationship between man and society one or many? What is the future of mankind? In the face of uncertain technological innovations such as AI, where are we heading to? Are we facing the problem with a critical eye, and are we seeking verification of this? Is learning to be human for oneself or for others? My reply is as follows. The relationship between man and society is neither one nor many, but a combination. Look at the ant colony and the bee colony from a human perspective. The relationship between each ant and the colony is the relationship between the individual and the whole, the relationship between the cell and the body. If the whole disappears, the individual cannot survive. If the body perishes, the cells die. And without the individual, there is no whole. Without cells, there is no body. So the relationship between an ant and an ant colony is a combination. When looking at human society from a higher level of life than that of human beings, in fact, the relationship between individuals and society is not fundamentally different from the relationship between an ant and an ant colony. Even with wolves and lions, this rule also applies. If there are only 3 people on this earth, then these 3 people will constitute a society, and a single person can only have a chance to survive if they combine with the society. Otherwise, they will inevitably become extinct. The future of mankind lies in the Xiefeng-style communist society. Otherwise, mankind is bound to perish. The path of American civilization will become narrower and narrower. Chinese civilization is a dead end, and the integration of political and religious civilization in some countries in the Middle East will inevitably decline. Intelligent technology will continue to leap forward and cannot be stopped. Eventually, biological robots that are more advanced than humans will be born. In the future, the reproduction method of a mother being pregnant and giving birth to children will be replaced by biological robots with biochemical nursery rooms. As long as there is competition, human beings will be eliminated by biological robots. There is only one way to survive, and that is to produce and live in accordance with Xiefeng-style communism. In the face of these problems, we can neither treat them in a critical way, nor in a way of seeking verification. Criticism can only find problems but cannot solve them. Verification can only cross the river by feeling the stones. It is difficult to guarantee the crossing of the river. Maybe you will be overturned and drowned in the river or by a wave before you reach the center of the river. So, what is the best plan for facing this problem? Answer: to implement the superhuman philosophy, that is, the person who is completely selfless and the most intelligent will make analysis, judgment, and induction and point out the way forward. Remember, the collective wisdom of millions of mediocrities is not as good as the foresight and sagacity of a saint. Democracy is the pursuit of mediocrities, and democracy cannot solve the problem of directionality. Learning to be human is neither for oneself nor for others, but a return to pure human nature. The nature that conforms to the way of nature is pure human nature, and the nature that does not conform to the way of nature is not pure human nature. This is like building a computer. As long as you build a computer that performs well, it can play a corresponding role no matter who uses it. If you consider making for yourself or making for others when manufacturing, the computer will fail if making for yourself, others cannot use it. If making for others, its performance will be greatly reduced. There are thousands of philosophers and amateur philosophers participating in the 24th World Conference of Philosophy in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing currently. They are all masters in the philosophical world today. I am willing to challenge the masters, that is, I can solve all the philosophical problems that you cannot solve. Do you not believe me? Bring your problem to me and see how I will solve it.
灵性思维的思考方式和做事风格
The thinking style and approach to action in spiritual thinking. Xiefeng. November 24th, 2023. Translation edited by Qinyo. We are already aware of the ladder of thinking in life: material thinking, image thinking, associative thinking, elusive thinking, visualized thinking, taiji thinking, non-form thinking, and holographic thinking. So why do we introduce rational thinking and spiritual thinking? Material thinking, image thinking, associative thinking, and elusive thinking all fall under rational thinking, which is characteristic of human thinking, while visualized thinking, taiji thinking, non-form thinking, and holographic thinking belong to celestial thinking. In other words, rational thinking and spiritual thinking serve as the boundary between human and celestial thinking. If your thinking is rational, do not doubt it. You are undoubtedly human. If, however, you contemplate and handle everything from the perspectives of visualization, taiji, non-form, and holography, without a doubt, you have transcended the ordinary and become celestial. Put simply, if our approach to problem-solving starts from the perspectives of materialism, imagery, association, and illusion, focusing on resolving the issues of survival such as food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and addressing life's inevitable challenges like aging, illness, and death, as well as securing respect, dignity, and a good reputation, and even aspiring to be admired or worshipped, then that is rational thinking, the thinking of humans. Spiritual thinking disregards these factors. Spiritual thinkers primarily consider whether their approach to handling affairs aligns with the will of the supreme life, the Creator, and whether it is consistent with their ultimate goal. In other words, spiritual thinkers make the will of the greatest Creator their own desire and the principles of Tao their guiding rules for action, without considering the benefits to themselves. They ponder whether their actions would please the greatest Creator. For instance, if the Holy Spirit tells you to live in the desert, a spiritual thinker will joyfully head to the desert without hesitation, thinking, "Oh, this is a revelation from the Holy Spirit. I believe in the Holy Spirit, so I should go live in the desert." It's that simple, direct, and straightforward. However, a rational thinker would never think or act in this manner. A rational thinker would ask, "There's no water in the desert, wouldn't people die of thirst? What if there's a sandstorm that buries the house? Live in the desert? Are you insane?" Similarly, if the Holy Spirit tells you to go to Canada, a rational thinker will first check how to get a visa. After finding out that applicants need a bank deposit and monthly bank transactions, and realizing they have neither, they would decide, "Forget it, I don't meet the requirements." But a spiritual thinker wouldn't bother checking the requirements or listening to others' advice. They would immediately start the application process. At this point, you might wonder what the Holy Spirit is and how to know if it's a revelation from the Holy Spirit. Let me explain. The Holy Spirit is not a person. It's the voice within us or the greatest driving force we feel in our hearts. This driving force must bring us joy and excitement, not pressure or fear. You might think that spiritual thinkers have simplistic minds. Let me tell you, the minds of spiritual thinkers are infinitely more complex than those of rational thinkers. Spiritual thinkers belong to a higher dimensional thinking, and rational thinkers cannot comprehend the complexity of spiritual thinkers' minds. This can be demonstrated in three ways. Firstly, spiritual thinkers grasp the macroscopic, while rational thinkers grasp the microscopic. For instance, when seeking employment, spiritual thinkers prioritize whether the job brings them joy and happiness, whereas rational thinkers focus on aspects such as salary, working conditions, and prospects. Why is that? Because spiritual thinkers consider the direction of their lives and whether they can ultimately reach heaven. They are unwilling to do anything that conflicts with their destination. On the other hand, rational thinkers consider whether the job can meet their current life needs and don't consider whether their current actions will affect their ultimate goal. From this perspective, spiritual thinkers consider how to live, while rational thinkers consider how to survive. Secondly, spiritual thinkers consider life, while rational thinkers consider human life. To consider life, one must understand the principles and mysteries of life and its relationship with time and space. To consider human life, one only needs to learn the accumulated knowledge and experience of humanity and understand the operating rules of human society. Thirdly, spiritual thinkers maximize simplicity in handling complexity, while rational thinkers always complicate simplicity. For example, when building a community, those who participated in the construction of our third and fourth branches can recall that the layout and environment of the two communities were beautiful, right? If it were rational thinkers, they would gather everyone to discuss how to lay out and beautify the environment, insisting on drawing plans first, considering the selection of materials and the arrangement of personnel, and so on. However, in the construction of the two branches, there were no such discussions. I just imagined the layout and environment based on the terrain and then told everyone what to do. When everyone worked together, they didn't even know what the final community would look like. Yet, due to excellent cooperation, we completed two beautiful communities in just 2 years. It's worth emphasizing that the mind of someone who simplifies complex issues is significantly more insightful and considers a broader range of factors compared to someone who complicates straightforward matters. It's not even on the same level. Don't believe it? Why not attempt to simplify your own life and observe the outcomes? If you think that spiritual thinkers handle things superficially while rational thinkers are meticulous, that's a misunderstanding. For example, when building a house in a certain location, a spiritual thinker might say, "Just build a housey on high ground using wood and glass. It'll be good if it can last for 2 or 3 years." This would be hard for a rational thinker to accept. At the very least, they would consider the stability of the house and ensure it stands for at least 30 years, right? On the surface, the rational thinker's consideration seems entirely correct. But the crucial point is, the spiritual thinker considers that there will be a major earthquake in the location where the house is built 2 years later. Even the sturdiest house would collapse. Therefore, they suggest just doing it casually. There's no need to go to great lengths and waste financial, material, and human resources. This is something a rational thinker would never think of. So, what about life? Isn't it like building a house in an earthquake zone? Is it necessary to rack our brains and be so serious? 有恒信者才有恒行. Those who have constant faith will have constant actions. Xiefeng, April 25, 2024. Translation edited by Qin Yu. Mencius said, "Only those who have constant possessions can have constant hearts. Those who lack constant possessions will lack constant hearts." From this, we can understand that only when the common people live and work in peace and contentment can society be peaceful and harmonious, and all industries can prosper and develop. However, can those who have constant possessions always abide by the law and refrain from wrongdoing? Will those who lack constant possessions inevitably break the law and engage in all sorts of misconduct? Not necessarily. The legal protection of private property rights is a universal value. Any act that deprives individuals of their lawful private property is a crime, regardless of the noble moral justifications. The sanctity of lawful private property rights is both natural and divine, a protection and respect for the people's livelihood and reproduction. It is the guarantee of the people's survival and prosperity. Enabling the multitude to possess constant property is like providing vast pastures for cattle and sheep. This is the way to nurture the people of the world. But let us not forget that constant possessions belong to the material realm. If a person's steadfastness depends solely on material possessions, their perspective and realm would be too narrow, and their spirit and consciousness level, making it difficult for their life to ascend to heaven. In heaven, everyone has the right to use, but no one has the right to own. Everything is shared, and everyone owns nothing yet possesses everything. Did Jesus Christ have constant possessions? Did Siddhartha Gautama Buddha and the sage Laozi have constant possessions? Did many missionaries have constant possessions? Yet, they all had constancy of heart. Above the notion that those who have constant possessions have constancy of heart lies a higher level of spiritual and conscious state. Those who have constant faith have constant actions. For those with unwavering faith, regardless of whether they possess constant material wealth or not, no matter how difficult and tortuous the path, they will persevere steadfastly towards their predetermined direction and goals, that is, constant action. Those who possess constant possessions may not refrain from wrongdoing, but those who have constant faith will never transgress. For example, someone may own a small farm, signifying constant possessions, yet cannot guarantee that they won't use pesticides, fertilizers, or even growth hormones on their vegetables and fruits. But for those with constant faith, they won't, because they are acutely aware of the dreadful consequences of transgression. Of course, the constancy of faith depends on what one believes in. If one believes in money is almighty or money can make ghosts grind, then their lifelong constancy will be in the pursuit of wealth. However, regardless of what the faithful believe in, the realm and perspective of those who have constant faith have constant actions far surpasses the realm and perspective of those who have constant possessions have constancy of heart. A pig, once it has a pigsty, possesses constant possessions and constant A swan, without a fixed home and without constant possessions, has constant faith. Therefore, the swan can freely soar between heaven and earth, migrate freely with the change of seasons, and fly wherever it wants to go.